Awesome. Now, welcome back to the Pro Formula Podcast. I'm your host, Tarek Shabazz, and the purpose of this podcast is to provide professionals with the formula to success. I'm here at Dream Motivate Studio out here in Dallas, Fort Worth, and I got to tell you, I'm super excited and super proud of this. My next guest is Dr. Octavia Landrum. How you doing today, Dr. Landrum?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. She's already trying to cut up, y'all, so we got to just get her before she gets rocking and rolling. How's things going these days, Doc?
Things are going busy, very busy. We have a lot of new things coming into the company. I have a lot of things happening in my personal life, so we just trying to enjoy life, trying to enjoy business, trying to make sure that both things keep us happy.
Yeah, that's good. I think trying to find a way to balance your professional life and balance your personal life must be a challenge these days. But I think for people that are tuning into the show, I'm sitting here, Dr. Landrum is a clinical psychologist. How did you get into that field? And talk to me a little bit about what you do on a daily basis, because I'm not sure if people really understand what that looks like.
Sure. To be honest, I was probably about 8 when I decided I wanted to be a psychologist.
Stop it. 8 years old, you said I want to be a doctor.
8 you know what? It wasn't that specific. I didn't understand it credentials wise, but I understood what I wanted to do.
Okay.
My parents got divorced. And that was the beginning. I come from the old school, don't ask questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Do what we say. We don't have to explain stuff to you. And so there were a lot of scenarios where myself and my brother, we found ourselves saying, are you guys going to ask us what we want? Or can we at least give us an opinion about this? And there just became a point where I said, I'm going to be the person when I grow up that's going to at least ask the kids what they want, because it is important. This affects us too. I think my parents kind of had a reaction like, hey, there's a lot of adult stuff to figure out, and that's what we're going to focus on, and then nothing else matters. And my brother and I had those side conversations in the back, not in front of our parents, but like...
Right, because we can't talk about those kind of things with our parents. Like, Mama, I'm hurting right now.
We cannot. We can't even question decisions. We can't know what's best. And not to say my mom didn't know what was best, or that my parents weren't trying to make that decision, but it was important to us to a certain degree to try to at least be heard, even if they didn't do what we wanted, to just ask us what we wanted. No one ever asked. And so I started out saying I wanted to be the person to answer questions for children, to help children when things get hard, to make sure that we don't just decide that that's not important so that people don't act out. And then eventually I did my first practicum when I was in school. So I went to school. I said, hey, I want to be a psychologist. That started the track of, hey, you need a bachelor's degree and then you need a master's. And then when I got to my doctorate program, I did my first residency hours with Child Protective Services.
Okay.
And I learned that children was not what I could work with. It was so hard. I could have adopted every kid in there. I wanted to take everybody home. I wanted to rescue everybody. And I figured out, like, there's no longevity in this. I'm not going to be able to sustain. One of the biggest things that our professors will tell us to do is try to separate work. In order for you to be able to do this job for a long period of time, you've got to be able to leave work at work.
Yeah.
And with the kids, I couldn't do that.
When you're seeing some of the things that I'm sure you've seen as dealing with children in psychology, I don't know how you don't bring that home. Like the people that can do that. Shout out to all the people that's out there working with the adolescents and working with the juveniles. Absolutely. That must be a tough job.
Absolutely. I believe that, and I saw that for myself, and I said, you know what? I cannot adopt everybody. I cannot try and save everybody. I want to be able to help the children, but how do I do that and still take care of myself? And so I eventually found my way into corrections, working with adults, and a lot of, I think somebody told me in a child development course that development is not necessarily linear. And so there are phases in our childhood that sort of impair our functioning. And so there's sort of a kid in each one of us for areas of impairment, right? So there's emotional, there's physical, and places where there's an impairment where you're a child, you kind of sort of have the age differences there, right? So you could be chronologically 30 and emotionally 17 and physically 22, right? And so that development, so it kind of helped me say, okay, I can work with adults, but their childhood traumas are going to still show up, and so I'll still be able to reach that child in adults, and it won't be so messy.
It's cool that you say that, because it's interesting how you're still dealing with juvenile elements in humans. Absolutely. And it may be a 30-year-old man, like you said, but he may, in his development, only be 14 or 15 years old. Yeah, absolutely. So talk to us about kind of a day-to-day, what kind of patients you see, what type of flow. Tell me a little bit about your practice.
Sure. So I am primarily in forensics. I work with correctional settings. I work with police officers, military, firefighters, constables. I currently have contract with Dallas County, so I service the sheriff's department. So a lot of pre-employment evaluations, trying to help the agency determine who's appropriate for public safety. Does this person function well under pressure? Do they respond? Well, one of the things that I think kind of pushed that movement was there was a lot of police brutality. There was a lot of things that came up about evaluations and whether or not public safety people were even sort of emotionally evaluated appropriately. And so that became one of the biggest contracts that was kind of coming out in about 21. So I was able to pick that contract up.
Nice.
I work with, I have a license in California also. So I work with the Department of Corrections there. They have elements of civil commitment for patients who are either pretrial and there's an incompetence or a sanity evaluation that's needed, or on the back end, once they're ready for parole, if we think that they could potentially offend and be dangerous, we evaluate there to determine if they should be civilly committed instead of parole into the community. So those are things that primarily come into my office. I have some attorneys that reach out. So we do personal injury cases. So in cases where things have happened and then potentially there's some psychological trauma, we evaluate there to try to determine if there's any fault on the insurance to try to help those people sort of get back to a normal life.
Yeah, I really could tell, when I was growing up, and even now I got a lot of friends that are in the correctional facilities and that are working on trying to get parole. And I think one of the things that's important for them is that they are able to meet with a practitioner who looks like them and who may understand that situation. Tell me a little bit about that process when you're seeing your own brothers or your own sisters and they getting out of the system, or you may have to be the provider or practitioner that says, bruh's not ready to get back out there. How do you separate your the way that you grew up in your community from your patients?
So what I'll say is in forensics, disclosure is not the best of practices, right? So we don't have a lot of conversations about my personal life. I am mindful to tell them, I'm not the person being interviewed or evaluated. So you don't necessarily get to ask me questions. We're not going to reciprocate that. It's not an interview, but I'm very direct. And a lot of times I have a very real conversation with my clients and patients that come through. And I think that's one of the things that, these are mandated people. So it's not, you're talking to me because you have to.
Yeah.
But I make sure that we can sort of remove that element of this is forced and I hate it and this is uncomfortable. I am very personable. There are a lot of scenarios where we can kind of smooth things over to where people end up telling me things that they didn't mean to tell me by the time it's over with, So, and a lot of times I get the feedback from my clients that if this wasn't this evaluation, or if I weren't here for that reason, you seem cool enough to hang out with on my free time, So I think that's what's helpful. People want to see people that look like them, that have had struggles and trouble, that know life. I mean, I do tell my patients, hey, if I had to have every trauma, experience every setback that everyone in the world has, I wouldn't be any good to you, right? I wouldn't be able to help you, but I can empathize and understand what's going on, and then between my understanding of people and my training, I'll be able to help you.
I think that's incredible, and I think in our community with black men, I'm starting to see that it's becoming normal to talk about needing help and talk about needing to go talk to somebody. And I'm really proud of that. I myself had to go see some counselors and understand. I call him Little Tart, the guy that's inside of me that's still reminding me of, bro, you was broke back in the day and you may not be able to get where you're trying to go. And so I really commend you for being in the field that you're in, because I do think representation matters. And I think I'm much more comfortable talking to you than I would be talking to someone else who may not understand my socioeconomic background or where I come from or where I'm at today. So salute to that. But have you seen an influx or an uptick in Black males or Black people in general coming and getting psychological services?
I'll say this. I'll say again, in the forensic setting, there's definitely, we outnumber the population.
That's right.
Of people being
break that down for us real quick, because you keep saying forensic, and I think I have an understanding. This is really somebody that's coming in. They're mandated by the state or mandated by the prison system to come in and talk to you to determine whether or not they're free. What does that actually mean?
Sure, absolutely. So most of my clients in the correctional setting are actually still inmates. They're either in a sentence already, and so the expectation is that they get services, and that's just state mandate. The state requires that we try to rehabilitate, and so there are certain services that they will be privy to there. Most of the services require an evaluation initially to figure out what type of services they will need. We make recommendations for program and treatment while they're there, with the hopes that there's some degree of stability by the time they're ready to get out. So yes, in that case, we as a minority are we outnumber.
That's because we're in the population in prisons.
We are hands over feet with people being in the correctional setting as minorities over Caucasian or Asian or any other ethnicity. So yes, that population, I will say, and I want to. The difference, though, you asked me the question about them coming to us. Again, they're mandated, right? So I think a lot of it is they're coming not necessarily because they want to.
Yeah.
I think once they get there, there's a little bit more of an appreciation of, I'm glad I came. But would they have reached out initially? I doubt it, to be honest. And I think, and the reality of it is, a lot of times I have to push my patients, especially in the correctional setting, to do the work, because there's also this culture in prison about how you actually do your time, right? I can't weaken myself to open up to, there's certain things that I can't work on in here, doc, because I need to stay where I am so that I can keep my status, or so that I can function in here, so that I can not worry about my
almost
family.
Survive.
Absolutely. So are they coming to me? Not necessarily. When they get to me, some of them are happy to get there. Some of them still fight it. So, what I'll say is, for the population that's coming to me as law enforcement, so we talk about the contracts I have with the county, those people are absolutely happy to see me. They're happy to see that there's somebody screening this area before, because this is the community I actually live in, right? So these same people who potentially pass these evaluations could be the people who are issuing citations or pulling someone over or responding to an incident, right? So it's good for them to hear. And I say that to them, even for those that don't pass my evaluation. Hey, listen, but the person who, if you were on the other end of this, if I'm telling you you're not ready, you would appreciate knowing that I'm going to have that same stance for anyone who comes through in this position, because that could be the person that pulls you over, right? That could be the incident that gets out of hand. That could be where the excessive force comes. That's my job, to make sure that the community is safer. And I'm not saying I'm catching every instance of, non-suitability, but that's the goal at the time, to evaluate people, to make sure that we're putting the right people in positions of power, that we're giving the right people authority. And
I think just with some of the cases that we've seen in police brutality, I think COVID, for some reason, it brought that out, where we were able to see that a little bit more. And I think it's really important that we have practitioners who are doing evaluations to determine whether or not somebody is actually fit to do their job.
Sure.
And I don't know that we know that those kind of evaluations are going. Is that something that's increased and you see more of now that we've had that kind of 2020 kind of deal break out? Or was this always a service that was offered and we just as a community didn't understand that you all were already doing this?
Probably the latter. I think what happened, though, is there became some more emphasis on what we actually screen for.
Okay.
Most of the states require a psych eval for a certain position. So, we talk about, public safety, like I said, in the military, to be a sniper, to be a pilot. These are positions that require psych eval all the time. They always have. I think what we did was kind of buckle down a little bit more on what we're screening out.
Okay.
what we're identifying. You know, our research is always getting stronger, so we're able to sort of predict, if you will, a little better personalities, you know, certain character traits, certain things that would be a red flag and say, hey, this is a person that wouldn't be appropriate. So I think the research is supporting us a lot more too. It's also pointing out the training that people need to actually work with people with mental illnesses. That mental illness didn't just start. I know it feels like now all of a sudden we have so many more, you know, the school shootings and things like that. It seems like now there's more mental illness. It's been there. We hadn't been attending to it. I think, you know, social media and cameras being everywhere, that's another thing that makes things look like it's more, but it's just more present because now everyone can capture it, right? There's hardly anything that can happen that someone hasn't caught on their phone or their doorbell camera, or, you know, so there's things where it just seems like there's a lot more of it. And it's just been there. I think it's just more prevalent because of the way our culture has evolved.
Yeah, I think cameras are everywhere now. You can't walk down the street without somebody capturing it on camera. This I guess for the viewer who's watching the show, help us understand if that's the case. We've been doing these evaluations. Why do we keep seeing this brutality? Why do we keep seeing such a misuse of their skills? Like it just seems like and not you specifically, but in your field, if this is something that was already being practiced, why is there? And again, maybe this was happening already, but it was just an uptick and we're seeing it more.
Evaluation. Let me not sound like I speak for the masses when I say, why haven't we? And that is a good question. Why is it that it seems like there have been so many unfit figures of authority in these positions?
Almost like they've been handpicked. It's almost like and again, I come from an inner city, so I think I have a slanted perspective. My perspective is likely going to be different than somebody who's grew up in the suburban area.
Sure.
But it just seems like this is the MO, and regardless of the city that I'm in, regardless where I'm at, it seems like everybody's saying police is always sweating me. I'm always getting shook down by the cops. Like, and I know you're not speaking for the community, but I'm just saying, like, it just seems like it's always been there.
Sure. So this is what when I said that it seems like something has changed about what we looked for. The chiefs and the captains that are already in position now that I don't evaluate because they already have the position, will tell me, I didn't have to do this, doc, when I did my psych eval. And so I think what's happening is just the change in the way we are evaluating. So somebody said to me before, I just did an interview. I sat and talked to the doc. They kind of asked me a couple questions. They even asked me like, hey, are you having any trouble with this? And naturally, you know, if you have any good sense, you say, no trouble at all, right? And then now we have instruments, right? So I don't ask most of the clients that come to my office any questions. I mean, sometimes there's an integrity piece of like, hey, is this an issue? But for the most part, I recognize that sometimes it's insight. Sometimes you don't know you're having issues with this. So me asking you and you having the ability to tell me that that's an issue might not be the case. So we have instruments where I can check your memory. You know, a lot of times we used to ask people, hey, are you having trouble with your memory? People, no, my memory is amazing. And then, you know, remember when we talked about at the beginning of the appointment? No, what did you say? So now we have instruments where I can just test your memory, your short-term memory, your processing speed. You know, so I don't ask you about your memory. We have questions where I do an assessment for your IQ. So what is your intelligence like? What is your nonverbal and verbal abilities like? And so what I'm saying is I think initially the evaluations, maybe they were interviews. Maybe they were screeners. Maybe they weren't instruments that were data-driven that supported, hey, if they scored this high or performed this well, then this is a person who would be appropriate. And so now you have, they're very likely. We've had jokes with some of our sheriffs and chiefs have said, doc, if I had to take your evaluation now, I'd probably be out of a job, you know, and it's like, well, good thing for you. You don't have to go back through this process, right? Maybe not so much for the community, but I think the reality of that is, with like any field, you know, as a professional now, my licensure exam was much harder than maybe my predecessors. You know, in some cases, they didn't have this exam, right? At some point, this started, and you've got people that have just been grandfathered into the practice because they've been practicing. Okay. So I think it's the same with the process of this evaluation. And so, yes, as we become more stringent about how we test and how we evaluate, we are able to better predict and better screen out people who are not appropriate. And so potentially people have gotten through before that should not have.
Awesome. I like that. I think that's a really good explanation. I want to kind of learn a little bit about you when you were a child, but I want to just ask, like, what would 10-year-old Octavia, like, what would she say about you today? If you was able to like go back and show her, hey girl, this is what I came from, this is what I'm looking like, what do you think she would think, and how would she feel about where you are today?
I think, you know what? I think she would be clapping and rooting like like Martin barking, like, yes, this is exactly what we talked about this. This is what I mean, it might not look the same. I've altered, right? The version of what I said I wanted to do, but I did that. And I a lot of times it's kind of like that childhood sweetheart, right? It's very rare that you see somebody that was in a relationship in high school or in middle school together, still together as an adult, right? And so it's kind of one of those scenarios of like, man, we said we were gonna do this at 8, and then and at 38 we did that. I think she would be excited. I think she would be glad that she pressed me when at the time. And it's funny to even talk about myself in some version of a third person. But yes, I think she would be very proud.
Look how she's just using doctor talk on me. She's talking like, I don't want to talk about myself in the third person.
Like, 10-year-old Octavia, what is that about? You got me talking like I got personality.
No, you ain't got multiple personalities, Doc. And for everybody that's listening, I'm asking the question so she's not crazy and she's not doing that by design.
And you are qualified to say that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to know a little bit about how you grew up. Where did you grow up at? Where did you go to school? Like, what was things that you did when you were younger to help you prepare for where you are right now?
I am from Dallas. For the most part, I grew up in Oak Cliff.
Okay. Shout out to the Cliff.
Shout out, Oak Cliff. I say that to say, but I was really strong in athletics. So one of the most influential people, period, in my life, Coach William Mookie Smith, rest in peace. That was my track coach. Okay. And so I went to school though in Pleasant Grove for the most part. So I say that I'm from Oak Cliff, but I went to Skyline. I went to Spruce. I went to Atwell and Brown. Actually, I did a lot of moving around in school. I probably touched most of the Dallas schools. So, we probably could line up some mascots in here and everybody could be excited. But
so you ran track as a young person. When did you get into track? Because my family, we got a huge track background. My sister went Division I. Was a long jumper, set the record in the state of Colorado for long jumping. She would have done the same thing in Texas. I just want to put that out there. She would have done her thing out here in Texas as well. And I ran a 49-second 400. You know what I'm saying? I broke 50 seconds. I ain't saying I was just Michael Johnson or nothing, but track was a big thing for us. And I remember getting into those blocks, getting ready to run that 400. And I used to ask myself, like, bro, why are you doing this? That was the hardest race. What races did you run?
I was a 200, 400.
Okay.
And then triple jump.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was a lot more athletic than you were.
That's her own personal opinion. She's not qualified to even say that.
My credentials say that I can know.
I dropped the 49-second quarter. I didn't tell y'all what I ran in the 200, but I mean, it wasn't that great either, y'all.
I'm gonna look you up after this. So
yeah, I'm gonna look you up too. So you ran the 200, you ran the 400?
I did.
Was that like running a TAC or running a USA track and field as a kid?
I ran USA. So we ran for a team called Texas Heat. I started running when I was about 8.
Okay.
And honestly, I went to daycare. My babysitter had kids in track. She took us all to practice. And while we were playing off to the side, my coach was like, who is that? Why is she not at track practice? And my babysitter was like, she here because we watching her, and my kid got practice, and he was like, put her out here. Where's her mom? So that was how I started running track, and he actually coached at Spruce. So eventually, as I got old enough to start going to school, he was really influential in where I went to school, making sure that I had good training, that I was very, very talented, and so he did not want people to sort of spoil me and, you don't have to practice, or a lot of times people can't coach talent, and so they just kind of allow you to do whatever your potential is, but he always wanted me pushed.
I remember my older sister and my cousins, they all ran track when I was a kid, and I was 4 years old. Shout out to Marcus Walker Track Club out there in Colorado, and I wanted to run track so bad when I was a kid, and I was 4 years old, and I remember asking my mom and said, Mom, can I go run track? And she said, we got to ask the coach. And I remember working up the courage and asked him, I said, I want to run track, sir. And he said, well, how old are you? And I said, I'm 4. And he said, you got to come back next year. And I was crushed. But we used to have track meets on the side. Practice was for us. We was practicing whatever they was doing. We was doing it out there in the bleachers,
Right.
and we was doing it on the side. And I remember our division was called 10 and under. So the next year I came back, I was 5 years old, and I had to run against 10-year-olds. And I remember getting last place almost every time until I got, to about 8 or 9 years old. But it developed that character inside of me that I was like, bro, you got to keep going. And I always had so much fun running track. I remember going from state to state, going to regionals and then going to nationals and going to Junior Olympics. And I did get that Junior Olympics 6th place medal. So don't even hate. Did you get a medal?
I'm All-American. So see, I feel like we might need to get some internet or something right now and pull up some stuff because you keep talking to me about that. I want to cite some records also. But yes, no, we went to Junior Olympics every year. Octavia Garrett was my name then. I think it's relevant. I am Dr. Landrum now, but I was Octavia Garrett then, and so you could absolutely Google me. So we should be able to find some times and some articles.
I'm still Tarek Shabazz. Y'all can check me out. You might catch me on that 800 or had to run the 800 from time to time. I ran the quarter mile. You could check me out there too. It might not be as qualifying as you were. So talk to me a little bit about how did athletics, go into this plan of where you are today? How did what you did as an athlete get you there to this point where you're at today?
Sure. Track is hard. People think that, a lot of times I tell people, my sport is every sport's punishment, right? What we do what we compete and do is what y'all only do when y'all get in trouble. So you are not ready to do this for not punishment. But so track is hard. So there were a lot of moments where you digging deep, where it pushed you. My coach was really big. He coached all girls, but he treated us like boys. It was like, hey, no crying and, get ready for life, and I think that was actually one of the bigger lessons that I kind of took from track. I mean, my coach was old school coach, cussed me out. He was on us. Parents have a seat. You bring them here. You want a scholarship. You want your kids to go far in life. Let me do my job. And he did it very well. But he was hard on us, no boyfriends, till you're 23, he was on us. And so that got me ready. I was able to, like I said, he cussed us out. And so we learned to hear the message.
Yeah.
And not so much exactly what he was saying, don't get stuck with the words. But he said, the world will be raw. It will be dished out to you this way from people who do not love you. Yeah. So it comes this way, but we love you. And so I think that was what helped me be able to say, when it's rough now, when people are not prepared for me, when they see me and don't expect me to be the doctor, when they don't expect me to have the credentials that I have, it's like, okay, I'm, my skin is thick now. Yeah. So that helped me.
We're going to take a quick break and you're going to check out this ad from Dream Motivates. I want y'all to check out my man Dream Motivates and tell me what you think about this commercial. We'll be back in just a second. All right, welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed that. We're still here with my guest, Dr. Octavia Landrum. And so we want to get back into a little bit about track and tell us a little bit about how track helped you educationally. How far were you able to take it on the track and field?
So track paid for school.
It paid for school.
It paid for school. It paid for undergraduate degree and my master's.
Okay.
Not my doctorate, but so I was Division I athlete.
Look at her trying to flex on me. I didn't make it to Division One. My bad.
I said I would. So I went to the University of Kansas. I was a Jayhawk.
Rock Chalk.
And then I went to University of Houston.
Okay.
So I graduated in 3 years, my undergrad. So I still had some eligibility. And then at U of H, I was able to start a master's program, and so they were able to pay for that. So yeah.
Awesome. And so you were able to leverage your track and field expertise that took you to college. And then just when I think about, becoming a doctor and just the amount of school that goes into it in itself, like, how did you keep yourself inspired and motivated to keep going to school? Okay, you got your master's, and then they say, all right, girl, you still got 4 years left. Like, talk to us about that journey.
I know. Tell me about it. So altogether, I did 11 years of college.
You guys, 11 years of school, you can do it. So you can finish your undergraduate degree, man.
So let me tell you, somebody actually said, there was a point where I was asking those type of questions. Like I said, so I was a child and I said, I want to be a psychologist. And then I go to college and then someone says, okay, you need to do 4 years. You'll get a degree in psychology, but you can't do anything with a bachelor's in psychology.
Okay.
You need a master's, but you won't be a boss. You can do some therapy. You won't be able to diagnose and assess. So if you want to do everything, you've got to go all the way. That's another 5 years. And so initially I heard that and I thought, wait a minute, 4 years of undergrad, 2 years of a master's, 5 years of a doctorate. We're talking 11 years. And so initially I was asking about the shortcuts. Like, hey, is there a program that's a merger of these programs? Do I have to do 11 years? Because, I want to eventually start a family and, do something else besides be in school. And so I talked to a professor and I said, man, 10 years, this is what I want to do, but just, I can't imagine 10, 11 years of my life just in school, even after being in school, K through 12. And he said, listen, 10 years is going to pass whether you do something with it or not. You're going to either look up and it'll have been 10 years and you can either say, I could have been a doctor right now, or you'll say, I am a doctor. And so he said, it's up to you. He said, you can do nothing. And then at some point you're going to say, man, it's been 10 years since I last thought about what I could do. So, I heard that and I said, you're right. If I'm still living, 10 years will pass. And I would hate to be able to say after 10 years, man, if I'd have just started then, I'd have been done by now.
Man, I want y'all to hear that perseverance. The sister got some perseverance, and it sounds like you had moments of doubt yourself where you were going to say, like, how do I figure this out? So just for you all that are watching this, and I want you to understand that you can do it. The people that are highly successful, like Dr. Landrum, she doubted herself at some point in time. But what's the difference between doubt and then actually doing it? So you had that conversation with him. You like, yo, I'm not sure that I really am cut out for another 10 years. Why did you decide to keep going?
So I would like to correct you. It is not doubt. I would just say it was my patience that was tested. I think there was a point where I wanted to be successful right now. Right. Which I think is kind of this microwave society that we're in anyway. Yeah. Like delayed gratification is not necessarily a thing that people are used to. We are learning how to do things for everything faster. Right. And that's honestly the mission. If I can get this done, what is the most efficient way to do it? And so I think I was in that mindset of, hey, I'm smart enough. If I need to take double classes this semester or, is there some formula that will allow me to just cut the 11 years, because then I'm calculating, wait a minute, I'm 18 and then, I'll be 28 and 30 and, when am I going to be able to have kids and get a family? So I think I found myself feeling like, wow, it's a lot of time. But eventually what happened is I just kind of decided like, hey, there's parts of what I want to do that I can live and enjoy even within this 10 and 11 years of school, right? No one said go to school and that's all you can do and you just kind of lock yourself in a cave and you don't, and so I think I just had to be patient about what parts of my life I could live through that process, So yes, I don't want to have any children while I'm in school because I don't want anything to stop me or slow me down. But hey, I can date still. I can still go out. I can still do things, And I knew that the discipline that I had already been taught from track, the ideal that, hey, you go to college and no one tells you what time to go home. No one tells you that, hey, you have to be at practice, that you have to go to school. So I'd already tested that discipline and I knew that, hey, I can do both. I can enjoy some of my life right now and still finish school. And then after those 10 years, I have the whole rest of my life to do whatever else it is that I could not do. So
I love that. I think discipline is such an underrated attribute. I think, like you said, we live in a society where we want to get it all right now. And I don't think that people really tap into that discipline that's on the inside of you to allow you to do that. So I see that that's been something that you've used to help you get to where you are in your career. And shout out to you for that. I wonder, like, if you could talk to 10-year-old Octavia and little baby Dr. Landrum. And again, I'm asking her, y'all, to talk in the third person. I know you know how she doesn't like doing that. But if I could talk to 10-year-old Dr. Landrum, what would you tell her?
I honestly, I would be clapping for her. I would tell her that, listen, the fact that you were able to ignore, take out the noise, the fact that you could hear Coach Mookie, like I said, was a very vital part of me growing up. And I think I had moments then where I felt like, don't talk to me like that. Or, I hated that he, it's so hard on me and I can't do anything. There were moments where I did not like that process. And I would tell myself, trust the process. It's going to work. You can do this, and this is going to get, you need this. This is going to get you ready, because they going to talk noise when you get here to 30-year-old self, but you'll be ready. You'll have heard it before, you'll be ready for it. I think the reality of it is 10-year-old self didn't know that it was going to look like this or that I was going to be able to do it. But I think I've always felt like, I've always been the person that if I tell you I'm going to do something, consider it done. I've never doubted that once I put my mind to it, and if I know I'm capable. And even I don't want to say if I know I'm capable, but the idea that, hey, what is it that I need to make sure this gets done? I'm resourceful. I'll figure it out. If I have to start researching and finding people that, how do I make sure that this will happen? So I think that is that same mentality. I would tell 10-year-old self, thank you for not allowing this to be an excuse for you to not do well, right? There are so many people who have these stories in prison that, my parents got divorced and I started smoking, or I dropped out of school, and and that becomes the excuse for why my life took a turn the wrong direction from that point. I was on my way and then this happened. And so, yes, girl, keep going. Don't worry about it. I'm glad that divorce didn't start you on a path the wrong direction.
Yeah, it sounds like you actually use that to fuel you and keep you going. And I think sometimes we want to use those as excuses to hold us back. So salute to you for that. I kind of want to just talk a little bit about your routine. And again, this is the Pro Formula, where we're really trying to help professionals who feel stuck or who are trying to make it to that next level, get to that next level. Talk to us a little bit about what you do on a daily basis. What is your schedule? What is your routine like?
One of the nice things about my schedule is that it is what I say it is. That I do love. I do love that about being in private practice. So a lot of times I sit down with my manager. Shout out to her, Tiffany Blacklock. She is the rock of
Shout out Tiffany company. Out there doing your thing, managing the team.
Listen, love her. So I sit down with her and we have some forethought of, hey, let's take a look at the calendar. What is life looking like? And we're weighing all kind of stuff like, when does school start? Hey, do I want to see patients on the day that school starts? Just in case we want to be crying in the car when we drop our kids off with their first day of school clothes, So looking at the schedule and saying, and a lot of it is, it's a good balance between personal and business. So, I have thoughts of, hey, how much revenue do I want the company to make per week? What does that look like for each client? So how many people do I need to see? And then what is my personal life looking like? Sometimes it's, hey, does my husband have something going on? And maybe Tuesday is not a good day to see patients. And so let's go Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, so we are able to manage that. I try to also practice the idea that there's self-care is important. So I don't want to work 10 hours all day, and I don't want to work on nights and weekends, and so trying to make sure that I make a schedule that allows for a good balance of personal and business. I see patients primarily heavily Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in my week. Monday and Friday is report writing. I do some remote things, consulting, training. And so that's the way I'm able to sort of manage my week in a way that works for revenue, personal, and business.
I love that. And I think when you're the proprietor, right, like you said, you're a sole practitioner. I was just, a lot of the people that I talk to on my show are entrepreneurs. And one of the things that they talk about is I get clarity breaks when I need them, and I'm able to take the time that I need them. One thing that I want to talk to is those people that are out there that are juggling being a professional and being a wife and being a mom, or being somebody's husband and being somebody's daddy. How do you juggle that? Because I know that your family is like at the forefront. You talked about your husband, you talked about your kids and what that means to you. How do you still make sure that you show up in your wife, but then still Dr. Landrum at the same time? Like, she does have multiple personalities, as y'all can see. Now, here we go. We're back to multiple personality.
For the record, he has no credentials behind that statement. What I will say is I'm figuring it out all the time. I will not say to you that I know the formula to that balance. I think the most important part for me is to be insightful and be able to reflect. I don't always get it right. I have some days where I come home if it's a heavy patient day and I don't want to parent.
Yeah.
I have some days where I want to do a lot of parenting and I don't want to work.
Yeah.
And and different things pull me either way. Hey, you better see somebody if you want to make some money today, or hey, your kids, you've been buried into a computer, for the past couple of days. Like, give them some time. So it's not something that I'll say is perfected, but it is something that I'm conscious about. So I continue to work on making sure that, hey, this has been a heavy week, but let me organize my week maybe by the end of the week so that I have time to hang out with the kids, or hey, so I have time to go out with the husband, or hey, we've been doing it's a birthday coming and we're doing a lot of family time, and so maybe let me stack my schedule so that I'm seeing more patients on these time frames so that I can make it balance out. So I mean, it's nice to have that flexibility. It's nice to be the owner so that I can make that decision, but it's constantly, that in itself is constantly work. And the reality of it is you're never off. I am, even on my days where I say I don't have patience, doesn't mean I'm not working, right? It is, I can still get a call. There's always emails I'm responding to. There's so many different opportunities for me to sort of be working, even if it's just making a decision. It happens always. I'm never officially off.
Yeah. I can relate. I got a big family, and for me, I try to find ways that I can I'm trying to be like fully immersed when I'm at home. So I'm not, I try my best not to be distracted when I actually like have time. But then I'll tell the kids, I got to go in the office real quick. I got to get some work in. But I try to make the time. Like, I was on my way out here to Dallas this week, but my daughter, we were buying her a car, and I knew that my wife was like, she had a way of telling me, but baby, I need you to be here to talk to the people so that we can do the haggling and all of that. And so, I made sure, like, my flight left at 9:00. I got to the my flight boarded at 9:00. We left and got to the airport at 9:00, so I try my best to make sure that when I have time, I'm intentional, I'm there. I try to take my daughter to school every morning, or try to do the things that I can, because ultimately when you pursuing a professional life and you pursuing professionalism, sometimes the family got to take a back seat, like you said, sometimes, and then sometimes the business got to take back seat. But like you said, we got to always try to find a way to bring that check in and to bring that check home.
True.
So I know how much your family is important to you. What are some of the things that your family is doing? Specifically, I know that you got a husband who's in photography. Talk to us a little bit about his business and how you help and support him.
Shout out to D. Landrum Photography. So yes, my husband is a photographer and a breeder. So he breeds American bullies.
Oh,
okay. We got some of those, and we can have a conversation about that too. Let me know. We got some puppies, and then also, and he's a photographer. So he has been. I think it's been 2014. He's actually been doing this for about almost 10 years, and so, but one of the coolest things is just, like I said, I think we've moved around a lot, whether it be for my profession, for school, for work. Before I started practice, I worked for the federal government, so I did a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
And so it's always been one of the things that I've hoped for him too, is as I become more influential and develop this networking and these opportunities, I'm constantly, sometimes people find me, because, hey, I have a nice picture on my profile, and they're like, hey, who took that picture? Do you know somebody? And I'm like, oh,
I know somebody.
It's funny that you say that. Yeah. So he has been, is amazing, has an amazing eye. He's the guy that likes to be behind the camera, but will make sure that you look good in front of the camera. So y'all check him out. He has social media page and a website as well.
How they get a hold of him, man? I think we need to know his information.
Yeah.
Shout him out too.
Shout out D. Landrum Photography. He has a Facebook. It's Deshaun Landrum. So you can pull him up on his Facebook. He has an Instagram as well. He has a phone number. Like how much do we want them to get a hold to him? Because we can help. We can help give him everything. We don't want to call him.
We don't want nobody calling this man.
Okay.
We don't want nobody calling him. But if you're in the DFW area and you need some photography, reach out to my brother, man, because he's out here. He's professional. The man's got some real live cameras and some lenses like I've never seen before, man. So I just want to shout my brother out as well and make sure that we follow him and we provide him with some support as well. So talk to us a little bit about where you at right now, where you see your business growing in the next few years. We don't got to necessarily say next 5 years, but
Sure.
what do you want to see your practice grow to?
Sure. So I'm in the process now of getting some contracts. I wanted to, like I said, I've already kind of tackled the county. I'm working to tackle the city as well. So
Come on, City of Dallas.
Come on, City of Dallas. I'm still here. So we have, there's been some, I don't know if you've kind of noticed on the news, there's been some critical incidents that have happened in Dallas. We've had some suicides of our fire and rescue staff. We've actually had a recent suicide of a DPD after a critical incident. And so there's still more to be done, mental health. I think it's becoming more present. I think people recognize it's important, but we've got to get our commissioners and city council behind funding the services that are going to be necessary to support them. They have a hard job. It is not an easy job. These decisions that they're making on the spot impact their life and the lives of other people. I mean, they're actually functioning in life and death, right? For them and for the people they take care of. So once you step away from the uniform, you don't take that off when you take the uniform off, right? Like similar to how I talked about leaving it at the door. It's not as easy as it sounds. And so making sure that we can support the city as well. That's one of the things I'm working on, trying to pick a contract up for the city fire and rescue. And then I'm actually in the process already of a contract with California Department of Corrections Board of Parole. So I'm going to be the parole board evaluator that will determine if people are ready for parole or discharge.
Now is this a formal RFP process that you have to go through?
I did. So for that one, I've already went through the RFP process and I've already been awarded that. Okay. So we're kind of in a process there of paperwork. Yeah. Right. So getting everything, I'll start in September 14th. So that contract is so
that contract is already solidified.
That one is done. That is solution focused all the way. The city is what I'm speaking. I have been in conversation with the chiefs for the city. We're working on trying to get them to a process where they can actually extend for me to compete for the services for the city of Dallas.
Yeah, I know that RFP process can be a challenge. You know, I've had multiple businesses, and trying to go after that government contract or get those government contracts isn't always easy. Give some advice to some of those people that are going through this RFP process. How can they break through it? I know sometimes it's going to be based on price, and you got to have a good price. But how do you give us some game on how we can get through that RFP process for those who have to go through that bidding process?
Sure. My first piece of advice would be let them tell you no. I started the RFP process, and honestly, the first time I had moments of each obstacle of, hey, they want you to show proof of this. They want you to provide this type of experience, or they want you to have this type of resource. And so you find yourself like, oh my goodness, this might be too much. Maybe I should back out of it. I had a couple of times, my first RFP, where I actually decided like, oh, I'm not even going to submit. Like I might submit portion and then be like, oh, this might be too much. The practice is too small for what they're asking. I'm not going to do it. And I actually had somebody in HR and purchasing say, no, we are still waiting on it. Go ahead and submit it. We will tell you if this does not work. And thank God that she said that, because I was able to get that contract, but I pretty much almost counted myself out. So
stop counting yourself out, before you even get there.
Absolutely.
I think it's so important what you just said right there is like, you got to go for no.
Yeah.
Like let them tell you that you're not qualified. You get into this process and then you get yourself overwhelmed and you stop going for it.
Absolutely.
They never told you not to submit that. In fact, they like, in this situation, it sounded like they said, girl, no, please submit it. We still got it open.
We are still waiting.
But how do we get out of our own way? And I'm asking, one, because you're a professional and you like Storm, or not Storm, but one of the ex people who was, I don't remember, the Dr. Jean Grey, that's who it was. So we sitting down, but how do people get out of their own way? Because that's a challenge. Just like, I don't believe I can do it, or I went through this process and I'm looking at it and I don't know that I'm qualified. Like, how do people get out of their own way so that they can go towards it and keep moving after it?
Sure. To be honest, the best thing I can say about my whole process is just self-checks, insight, having people around you that also can kind of tell you like, no, sometimes you're kind of like, is this okay? This is, the same thing you would do if you were getting dressed, right? You get dressed and then you think it looks good and then you look to somebody that you trust and say, hey, is this cute? And then they let you know, of like, go back in there, or yeah, this will work, and so I think that was one of at some point, I had to allow someone else to pat me on the back enough to say, like, you have no idea that what you bring to the table is not necessarily the normal, or it is more than what you think. Because when you're, it's just kind of like coming up as an elitist, as an athlete, you are surrounded by other elite athletes. And so you don't find yourself feeling special. You are, it's like, I'm good. And there, we talk about track is 9 lanes. There are 8 other people next to me just as fast, and on any day they could compete better, right? Not that they are better, but that this could be the day that they give their better self, right? And so and I think that is the humbleness of it. So as long as you don't feel like I'm the best and it don't get any better, you'll keep going. When you get to a point where you think you can't grow, is probably where there is a problem, so I think you get out of your way by being reflective, being able to sit back and think about, how did this go? What could I have changed? What can I do better? Letting other people give you that feedback.
I like that. And I think, one of the things that I'm hearing you say is, when you're getting that feedback from others, but you got to also be careful who you get that feedback from, because I call them dream killers, people that know somebody that tried it before. And, I tried to get a contract one time as a janitorial contract, and it wasn't easy. I don't know how you're going to get those services. So I think you got to be careful with the people that you get that advice from, and you got to make sure that you in a circle of people that actually have your best interest at heart, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that is, I did say get the feedback from people you trust, right? So we're not just asking anybody. And honestly, sometimes our naysayers are also.
Sometimes those are our people that we trust.
But those are the people that motivate us also. So even when you tell me, no, because again, like I said, there's moments where I can be very humble, but there's also moments where it's a challenge. It feels like a challenge for me, and I respond well to challenges. Don't tell me I cannot do something. So you say that too long.
Okay.
And now I'm like, oh, I'm glad you said that was impossible, because now I want to be the first person.
She want to prove you wrong, man. She's trying to prove you wrong, y'all. She does not.
So tell me that, because that'll get me working too. I'll be up all night looking up some stuff, and by the time you wake up, I got a whole plan.
So planning, we're talking about the tools and the formula for success. Some of it is research.
Sure,
some of it is believing in yourself and believing that you have the talent and you have the requisite skills to be at that next level. So I really hear you on that. And you all, if you're around people that are constantly discouraging you, I would encourage you to get a new group.
Absolutely.
Like, you can't be around, you want to be around people that have your best interests at heart, but there's got to be a fine balance of, I have your best interest at heart, and then I just don't believe in you. And I think trying to figure out what that looks like sometimes can be a challenge, because growing up in my neighborhood, there weren't a lot of, I would say, like, professionals. There were people that were successful, but it was kind of going about it in the wrong way, or they was doing it the wrong way. So I think ultimately you got to put yourself around people that see who you are, they can project where you're trying to go, and then you got to be willing to cut people off. How is that? On your journey to become a doctor, I'm sure that you've had to shed some pounds, lose some weight on your way there. How's that been?
I was trying to think about that. What I'll say is that journey has probably started long before it was about being a professional. I'll say that just even being an athlete,
True.
Just going back to trying to be a D1 athlete, even just in high school, trying to prepare myself for certain meets. Anytime you don't have like-minded people around you, whether it's because they don't support what you do or because they want to do something different, you have to make some choices, because, like I would tell an alcoholic, you can't go to the bar and say, I don't drink, because enough people around you will convince you to take a drink. And so you have to be around people with similar passions, with the idea that they want to keep going forward, that they also are going to be rooting for, that the jealousy goes away when they also have something to be pushing for, right? And so it's not that if you are the only one in your circle working towards something successful, you're not going to go very far. You are only as strong as your weakest link, and so
iron sharpens iron.
Right. So having more people around you where everybody's going somewhere, right? And that was important from a young age, right? My mom didn't want me around the girls. She said they were fast.
Too fast. That girl's fast.
Yeah, that fast. She fast. She gonna have babies. And if that ain't what she wanted from me, hey, I couldn't even play with her. Yeah. She outside, I'm coming inside. She making up dishes. Come on in here and have a seat because she outside. So I think that's one of the things that, the shedding of the pounds, like you say, that started a long time ago. But, and I think I've done a pretty decent job of, keeping people around me that support me, that believe in me, that also have things going and, that we can support as well, that, that I can take perspective from. I mean, I think in the professional field as well, I've gained some people, not necessarily just shedding pounds, but adding pounds, right? Yeah. People who can say, hey, I've done this before, don't do it like that. And I'm like, great, because I don't need to rehash.
Yeah, we don't got to reinvent the wheel.
We don't have to do it, and I don't have to take some of the falls that have already been taken, so if I can learn from your mistakes, that's also amazing. I think that process is, as far as family, I would say that's one of the things that has been more or less difficult, is trying to include my family in my success, but not being able to offer them all of the opportunities because, hey, this requires you to have this credential and maybe you don't have it, or this requires you to have this special skill and you don't have it, but trying to, keep my family involved and support them, that's probably been my next biggest challenge,
Yeah. Well, it's been awesome. I got one last segment and I call this Settle the Score. Okay. And so in this segment right here, what we do is we know people are debating this and we want to just really talk about it. And so I got a couple quick questions that I'm going to ask you. The first one, who's had a greater impact on your life or on the culture? Would you say Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or would you say Malcolm X?
I would say Malcolm X.
Malcolm X.
I would say Malcolm X.
Okay, I thought the doctor was going to stick together here, but you.
I love MLK, but I would say Malcolm X. I like the way Malcolm X responds to adversity.
Yeah. There we go. If you were going on a vacation, would you rather go to L.A. or would you rather go to Miami?
L.A.
L.A. over Miami.
L.A.
Okay. Are you a reader, like you like flipping pages, or you want to pop in an Audible and listen to Audible?
Definitely Audible. I am an auditory processor. If I hear it, it actually sticks. So I would rather hear it than read it.
Okay. And then we got to know this answer right here. Who you taking, Sha'Carri Richardson or FloJo?
Man,
I'm talking about they on 100 meters together right now. Who you taking? Is it Sha'Carri or are you taking FloJo? Come on now.
I feel like you put the D-Town in me on the span right there. So here, let me say this. I absolutely support my sister from Dallas. I love Sha'Carri. I think she's doing great things. I hope she continues to do.
Shout out Sha'Carri.
Shout out to her. Congratulations on that win. But FloJo.
She's still the record holder.
She's still the record holder.
Okay.
And so, hey, I can't not take FloJo.
Awesome. Well, it's been awesome. I want you to tell people how they can get a hold of they can get a hold of your practice and how they can reach out to you if they have psychological services or needs.
Sure. So Solution Focus Psychological Services. We have a website, solutionfocuspsychservices.com. We have an Instagram page. We have a Facebook. We have a LinkedIn, Solution Focus Psych Services. You can find us there. We are in our office in Ritchie Towers in Dallas, 8585 North Stemmons Freeway, Suite 700 South. So come find us there. You can check us on the website, give us a phone call. We have online booking. So yeah, reach out. We are here.
Awesome. Well, that's a wrap of the Pro Formula Podcast. I'm hopeful that you enjoyed. I'm your host, Tarek Shabazz, and I can't wait to see you next time. Peace.